TENPAI Dragon just won the European National Championship and has proven to be one of the best decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! So today I'm bringing you my updated TENPAI Dragon deck profile for the post-Infinite Forbidden competitive format. I'll be going over why every single card is included in the list, as well as give you options for budget players too. And I'll even cover some really popular choices that weren't in my list so you know my thoughts on them and can make an informed decision on what you would do in your list. So smash the like button if you're excited for the video, subscribe if you haven't already, but with that being said, here is my updated TENPAI Dragon deck profile for the post-Infinite Forbidden competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Format. So here we are back for my updated TENPAI Dragon deck profile for the post-Infinite Forbidden competitive format. Now, you guys loved my TENPAI Dragon week back when Legacy of Destruction first released, and honestly, I want to bring you an update every time we get a significant change to the deck, and Infinite Forbidden definitely did that. I do want to say I expected that Snake Eye Fiendsmith would be the best deck of the format, and I was proven right. I think everyone expected that as well though, but I did not expect that TENPAI Dragon would be the second most represented deck in Top Cut of the different World Championship events. Just crazy to think about, but it has been performing incredibly well. So what I have for you today is my 42 card main deck, 15 card extra, and 15 card side deck. So we're going to go ahead and start off, of course, with our main deck once again, and I want to divide this main deck into two different categories. It's going to be our engine and our non-engine, which I know, groundbreaking, but it's pretty stark the difference when you look at TENPAI Dragon. So of course with TENPAI Dragon, you're going to easily start off with 3 copies of Pydra being your starter for the deck, getting you either your Sangen Kaiman or your Sangen Summoning as well. We have 3 copies of TENPAI Dragon Chandra, our main tuner in the deck, and I'm also playing 2 copies of TENPAI Dragon Fadra. So 3 white, 3 red, 2 green. I'm also playing 2 copies of the new Genroku, 2 yellow, and 1 Dora Dora. This is my lineup for my Fire Dragon monsters. Now obviously these all have different effects you have to be aware about. The main effects are going to be, first off, these 3 over here, white, red, and green, have the effect where during the battle phase, as a soft once per turn, you can quick effect synchro summon using this card you control. White Dragon here has the effect where on summon, you can add to hand or set a Sangen spell or trap, so you can set from your deck something like the Sangen Summoning, the field spell, and you definitely want to see it in almost every single hand that you have because it's just so good at getting you the advantage you need to be able to OTK. Chandra is your tuner of the deck. It has the effect where it can special summon itself from the hand in the battle phase. If a monster declares an attack at the start of the damage step, you can summon a TENPAI Dragon from your deck other than itself, which is really strong because it allows you to get access to your green or your white, so you always have them in rotation. Very important here as their level 4 tuner. And then we have green on summon or in the battle phase. If a monster declares an attack at the start of the damage step, you can special summon a TENPAI Dragon from your graveyard. You target it and summon it from your graveyard, which is really nice. We're acting the damage step here, which is really important to be able to recycle resources. It is a level 3, so you have your 3, your 4, and your level 3 once again. We then have the new TENPAI Dragon Genroku. This card is crazy strong. It has a few different effects. It's basically going to be Poplar. When it's added to hand, except by drawing it, you can special summon it. So if you do go in the battle phase and use something like Sangen Kaiman to add Genroku to hand and then special summon a different TENPAI Dragon monster, you can then use the effect of Genroku in a new chain to special summon itself out as a tuner, and then you can choose if it's a level 3 or a level 4 as well. The effect to become a tuner is mandatory. If it's summoned that way, its level modulation is an option that you can choose when it is summoned, of course. It does also have another effect where during either player's turn as a quick effect, you contribute it for cost to special summon any TENPAI from your deck except for itself, which is really good because in the battle phase, in your opponent's battle phase, for example, you contribute it off to be able to summon out a tuner like your Chandra. You can summon out your Fadra to get extra resources, whatever the case might be. It's a phenomenal card, and I love it at 2 copies. And then the last card is our Dora Dora. Dora Dora is great because it's just an additional normal summon. It is a little bit redundant, I think, to play the Dora Dora with 2 Fadra and 3 Pydra. I just want to test out this ratio here with 11 monsters. I think it's really nice because you really want to see these guys over here, and you don't really want to see Fadra. If you see any of the other 9 monsters, you basically have full OTK, which is obviously really strong. So Dora Dora on summon will add a level 4 or lower Fire Dragon from deck to hand. In this case, it's going to be the Genroku most likely. And then it has another effect where it can excavate cards. It's a Fire Dragon, it sends it to grave, and it gains 1,000 attack, basically, is the main thing. Now, there's no need to play anything more than this when it comes to the Tenpai Dragon monsters. You don't want to play anything more than 11 in my opinion, and you can honestly cut it down to 9 by dropping the Tenpai Dragon Fadra to 1 and the Dora to 0. This is a suitable lineup as well, but honestly, there's so many different options. This is just my personal preference, and I did want to mention as well that green and white also have secondary passive effects, where while green's on the field, your fire dragons can't be destroyed by battle, and while white's on the field, you take no battle damage from attacks involving those cards as well. So that's very important to note. There you go. That is going to be our monsters. We then have our spell cards. So we start off with 3 copies of Sangen Kaiman. This card is incredible. It allows you to add a level 4 or lower fire dragon from deck to hand. So it's basically Rhoda, and it also lets you special summon a fire dragon, any fire dragon monster from your hand as well, which is very critical. Just keep in mind that if it is not the battle phase, you can only activate one of those 2 effects. But if it is the battle phase, you can activate both, and that's what makes this card so good at helping you OTK. We then, of course, have 3 copies of the best card in the deck, being Sangen Summoning, and pairing that with the 1 copy of Terraforming. This card is ridiculous, and this is the card that people would want to be hit on the ban list, because what this card does is threefold. Firstly, it protects all your fire dragon monsters you control from activated effects. That means if your opponent tries to imperm the effect of your Pydra, doesn't matter. You're fine, you're immune to it. They can still activate it, target it, do all that stuff, it just won't do anything, which is critical. Keep in mind though, it doesn't affect the cards in hand. So if you have a Tenpai Dragon Chandra in hand and your opponent has an Appaloosa, they can negate the effect to special summon the Chandra, which is, again, important to note here. The other effect it has is that you can add to hand a Tenpai Dragon monster, and then you can discard 1 card. Very important, and the fact that the add happens first, then the discard is really nice. It can get you into Genroku plays, it can get you into basically any Tenpai Dragon monster you want. It is so incredibly powerful. And then the last effect is one of the reasons you're able to OTK and get over really big monsters, because if this card is destroyed, you can target a Dragon Synchro monster you control and double its attack permanently. And there are so many ways to destroy this card in this deck. There are 4 Dragon Synchro monsters in the extra deck that do that destroying for you, which is really nice, and Terraforming is there to search it out. And our last card as part of our engine is going to be the 3 Pot of Prosperity. I think Pot of Prosperity is pretty much mandatory in this deck. It is so easy to OTK through Prosperity, and you really want to make sure that you have access to getting whatever engine pieces you want, or whatever non-engine is going to be the most effective for you. So for that reason, I would definitely consider Pot of Prosperity a mandatory card, and that is going to be 21 cards as engine. The rest of the deck is going to be non-engine, and I decided to play 42 cards, so we have 21 non-engine slots. Starting off though with our hand traps, I am playing 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. I'm playing 3 copies of Ash Blossom as well. These are the best hand traps in the format, in my opinion. Imperm being a trap card is critical. Ash Blossom being able to essentially trade very favorably with a lot of different cards and possibly shut down the Fiendsmith engine entirely as well is really nice, because if they go Requiem, Tribute for cost, I then go Ash Blossom, negate the effect of the Requiem to be able to special summon from the deck, the Fiendsmith engine is pretty much cut off unless they have exactly Engraver or Tract already in their hand. We also have 3 copies of Droll. Droll is here because it's a great way to end turns if your opponent decides to start off with like a Bonfire or a Fiendsmith Engraver search, for example. Just those 2 right away, Droll is able to shut turns down so effortlessly, and I really like having for that reason. I am, of course, playing 3 copies of Dimension Shifter as well. I don't like Shifter in this deck because it can be difficult at times to OTK through Shifter. You have to have the right hand, and you definitely can't OTK through Shifter and Prosperity, which really hurts. But when going first especially, it is so incredibly good because you drop Shifter, start your plays, and you kind of just go from there, and your opponent's going to struggle to OTK you, and you can kill them on the crackback. But I am playing Shifter because right now, Snake Eye Fiendsmith is the best deck by a mile, and you have to have a way around it. This is a silver bullet card against it. If I'm playing Yubel Fiendsmith, I actually don't care about Shifter. I side it out. It's not that important to me. Moving on though, I am playing 3 more hand traps. I'm playing the 1 Magnamut, the 1 Druid's Worm, and the 1 Baldrake. In my opinion, these are the best additional hand traps to play right now. They are level 6 bodies, which is really nice because if you were playing a level 6 centric deck, it'd be great. That's one of the reasons why they're seeing play, but also because Magnamut has a beneficial effect to search for like Chandra in the end phase, which you can then summon out, and then synchro with the Magnamut and the Chandra for a level 10 synchro, which is going to be fantastic. Druid's Worm will send a special summon monster on the field to the graveyard, which is huge, and Baldrake can basically banish a monster summoned from the extra deck by tributing another lighter dark monster. Really good when paired with another Bestial monster. Just fantastic options. These are my 15 hand traps in the main deck. I'm also playing for my board breakers Triple Raigeki. I think Raigeki is such an incredible card in this deck. I honestly love it. It's one of my favorite cards in the deck because it's not once per turn, it destroys all opposing monsters, and your opponent just has to respond to it in some way, because if they don't respond to it, they're going to have a lot fewer interruptions. At the same time, end boards are finishing off with a copy of like Appaloosa. Sure, they'll have a copy of IP, and IP can protect whatever it summons out from the Raigeki, but you get rid of Appaloosa, which is a huge problem for this deck because it negates activations, meaning it can negate the effects of Chandra in the damage step. I'm also playing the one Harpy's Feather Duster as back row removal. I'm playing one singular Lightning Storm, which may seem contradictory, but with having Bestials, I might have monsters on the field. I didn't want to have to rely on possibly having a dead card in hand, so I want to play just the singular Lightning Storm. And then my last card is going to be the one Change of Heart. I love Change of Heart in this format. Change of Heart, going for an Appaloosa is so good because you can then negate any interaction they would have with you, and if you can steal an Appaloosa while going for full combo, you should win the game through pretty much anything, which is incredible. So that's going to be it for my non-engine pieces and the rest of my main deck. Moving on though to the extra deck, we are rocking with 2 copies, of course, of the Sangenpai Dragon. This card is incredible. On summon, it allows you to target a Tenpai in your graveyard, special summon it back. It has the effect where it's in the was in the graveyard. As a quick effect, if 3 or more attacks have been declared during the turn, you can special summon it and non-target pop a spell or trap card on the field. That effect is a once per duel effect, but still a very strong one to close games out. Very common to see right now where you're going to be summoning out, going first especially, you're going to be setting up a way to get to Biden Dragon with another monster on field, and then link the Biden Dragon up with something else to go into your Hieratic Seal of Heavenly Spears, and you're still ending on Spheres Past, but you have Biden Dragon in graveyard for extra follow-up, and it gives you an extra level 7 body when you try to OTK on turn 2, or on your turn 2, I should say. Fantastic card, you have to play it at 2 copies. We have the one Transcendent Dragon. It is recommended to play at 1. If Kashtira Unicorn becomes a more popular option, I will bump it up to 2 copies because you really want to have this card in your extra deck. On summon, makes all monsters on the field into attack position. Your opponent can't activate cards or effects in the battle phase, which is incredible. If it's in the graveyard and 3 or more attacks have been declared, summon it back out, pop a card on the field. Incredible card. If this card hits the field, you should be winning the game. We then have the one Trident Dragon. If this card hits the field, you're definitely winning the game because it is so powerful. It is able to deal 18,000 damage in a single turn by popping 2 cards, one of which being your Sangen Summoning to double its attack to 6,000, and it's just fantastic. If you can't play it, I will give you alternatives. We are also playing our Odd Eyes Meteor Burst Dragon and our Black Rose Dragon as our generic level 7 synchros. Meteor Burst is like a baby version of Transcendent Dragon, preventing your opponent to activate monster effects in the battle phase, and Black Rose is very commonly made to be able to blow up the field while under the protection of summoning or on your opponent's turn. I'm also playing the one Black Rose Moonlight Dragon as a way to help deal with decks like Yubel, because we're not destroying with this card, we're returning to hand, and it can be activated multiple times. Just keep in mind, it is a mandatory effect, which is a little bit iffy at times. I'm also playing the one Q-Belt, the Blade Dragon. This is a interesting card here that I think is going to see a lot more play because it's an extra way to pop the field spell to gain attack to make this at 5,000. And I can just pop some really problematic cards as well. I do think it's just got good utility, so I want to play it. And our last synchro is the one copy of the Vorpgate here. You could play the Samurai Destroyer. I think Vorpgate is really good because you play Samurai Destroyer for Yubel, and Vorpgate is also there for the same reason. It's harder to make, but it has more potential upside because Samurai Destroyer can only attack 1 monster. Vorpgate, while it does attack that 1 monster, it then removes everything from the field and you can then go in for a game, even though you are cutting your life points that you're dealing in half. As for our links, we have the one Heavenly Spheres. Fantastic card, you gotta play it in my opinion. I debated bumping this up to 2 copies. I also have the one Hita as well to pair with my Promethean Princess, my Raging Phoenix, and my Zealantis for the Zealantis OTK, or the Raging Phoenix OTK rather. These rarely come up, but when they do, they're really strong and they help you play around Dimensional Barrier. And my last card is the one SP Little Knight. It's not mandatory. I rarely go into this. It's just like if I can't OTK my opponent and I want to have a good body on field, I'll go into SP because it's just a solid card to be able to end on and being able to just annoy your opponent quite well, especially when you pair that with hand traps in your hand. You should be in a position where you can survive and then OTK on the following turn. That's going to be it for the extra deck. Moving on to the side deck, I want to say the side deck should be very dependent on what your local scene is looking like, what you're expecting to play against. This is going to be a generic side deck that you can look at and adjust however you see fit. But again, the side deck is so personalized, and if you want to make changes, by all means, go for it. Starting off, we have the one Kokimeru Drago. This is a card I think is non-debatable. You have to play Drago. Your hardest matchup is Yubel because of all their effects to not be destroyed by battle and reflecting battle damage. Drago means they can't summon those guys out. Really important. It is summoned off most of the time by the effective sphere, so keep that in mind. I'm also playing the one Grand Tusk Dragon. This card is interesting. If you've never read it before, it is basically going to be a card that when it's summoned out, you target 2 other cards on the field or up to 2 other cards on the field and just destroy them. And if you do, it gains 600 attack for each card destroyed. The reason why I like this so much is here for decks that aren't using light or dark monsters, and most of them are right now, but if you're going up against, like, for example, Tenpai Dragon, Grantus Dragon is great. Let's say your opponent has a Sangan summoning on the field with 2 Fire Dragon monsters and we're still in the main phase. You can go ahead and use the effect of your spheres, bounce back the summoning, summon off the spheres, your Grantus Dragon, target the 2 other Fire Dragon monsters, and then destroy those 2 cards, and they can't even synchro summon because we're still in the main phase. Really good there. I think it's just a super solid choice. It is a very niche option, but if you like it, go for it. It's not for everyone though, and I completely understand that. I'm also playing 2 Cosmic Cyclone. I love this card. I was considering maining 1 copy. It's just super solid overall at dealing with problematic floodgates. I highly recommend playing it in your side deck. If you want to bump up to 3 copies, by all means, go ahead. I'm playing 3 Forbidden Droplet. This comes in if I'm not playing a card like Dimension Shifter. If I'm playing Shifter, this stays in the side deck. If I'm not playing Shifter, this comes into the main deck. It is that strong of a card. I think you have to play it in Tenpai Dragon somewhere because of what it can do for you against so many matchups. It just effectively turns cards like your Sangan Kaiman, it turns cards like your Board Breakers, your Pot of Prosperities into additional forms of disruption, which I really like. I'm also playing 3 copies of Ghost Sister and Spooky Dogwood. This is a surprising pick. Why am I playing this? It's because of the Gimmick Puppet FTK, and that's pretty much it. We are going second deck. Puppet, they want to go first against you, and they want to OTK, or FTK rather, and having Dogwood is just another way to help prevent that from happening, so I want to play it. And I'm also playing 3 copies of Dimensional Barrier as a way to deal with, again, decks like Gimmick Puppet if we decide to go first against them, or decks like our mirror match with Tenpai Dragon. It's just a solid choice. If you don't want to play it, by all means, don't play it. It's fine. I like it a lot, though. It comes up quite a bit. And my last 2 cards is 2 copies of Triple Tactics Talent. This is also debatable. I really like it here because when going first, if I'm not a fan of like Shifter or Droll or whatever, I can take cards out and replace them with like Cosmic Cyclone, Talents, and then my choice of these are 2, 2, and 2, and I'll be happy with that as well. And Talents is just a great card going first or going second, so I want to incorporate it somewhere into this list. That's going to be it for our side deck here. You guys saw the main deck and the extra deck so far, and I do want to cover a few things quickly because there are so many amazing cards that we just aren't playing in this list. Tenpai Dragon is a deck that has so much engine pieces, or so few engine pieces rather, that the non-engine can be a little bit difficult to decide upon, and for that reason I want to go over a few cards that are a bit surprising that aren't in this list and tell you why I'm not playing them, so make sure to stick around for that. So that was the deck profile, and I want to talk about a few other cards that weren't included in the list, but I also want to give you some options for budget players too. Starting off, we'll have a quick discussion on Trident Dragon. This card is obviously incredible in Tenpai Dragon, but it is not a mandatory card to play. If you can't afford to play that card, I would recommend playing a second copy of Transcendent Dragon in your extra deck. It's a phenomenal card that'll give you a lot of advantage, and you can always summon out multiple in a given turn. But if you can't afford playing a copy of Trident Dragon, I definitely recommend it. As for the SP Little Knight, that card is definitely not mandatory to play in Tenpai Dragon. If you want to play a different choice, I would recommend something like a second copy of Hieratic Seal of the Heavenly Spheres, or a Dual Little Chimera to be able to use with your Promethean Princess engine. And speaking of Promethean Princess, it enables one of the most powerful OTKs in the game today in the Salmon Great Raging Phoenix and World Sea Dragon Zelantis OTK. If you can't afford a Raging Phoenix, don't worry about it. Again, Dual Little Chimera is a great option for that instead, and I highly recommend it if you can't get the Raging Phoenix. But now for some other cards that weren't actually in my deck. Starting off with a new favorite of Tenpai Dragon players being Power Filter. Power Filter is an incredible card, and honestly, if you have it, it's a great choice in the side deck. I personally don't have it, which is why I'm not playing it. If I did, I probably would include it because it helps so much with the Yubel matchup. If you do have Power Filters though, I would recommend playing them over Triple Tactic Talents and the Grand Tusk Dragon. Next up is Heatwave, a great card for Tenpai Dragon when you're going first. Honestly, it's a fantastic card, there's no doubt about it, but the card itself doesn't seem to be as strong as it once was in the early stages of Tenpai Dragon's history. If I had a choice between Heatwave and Power Filter, I would definitely choose Power Filter. Moving on is Crossout Designator, which is seeing a lot of play in Tenpai Dragon's side decks because of the amount of hand traps they're playing. Honestly, it's a great choice at dealing with opposing hand traps, but Tenpai can play through hand traps already very well, so I'm not too concerned about it at the time being. I would rather have additional hand traps on my end over a copy of Crossout in my side deck. But it's still a great choice nonetheless, and if you want to play it, by all means go for it. Molcharmi Pirellia is an awesome card for Tenpai Dragon, and it's seeing a lot of play in Tenpai Dragon main decks. I'm not playing it for 2 reasons. First off, I don't have it. Again, it's an expensive card, I'm going to hold off a little bit. But second, I think the card is a little bit overrated right now. It's a bit more powerful in certain decks that are playing fewer hand traps in my opinion, rather than decks that are playing more hand traps, and I'm playing 15 in Tenpai Dragon. But again, it's a fantastic card. If you want to play it, you absolutely can. I just think it's a little bit overhyped for the time being. Anyways, that's my Tenpai Dragon deck profile. It's very geared towards beating decks like Snake Eye, Yubel, and the Tenpai Mirror Match. And if your local or regional levels aren't really seeing a lot of play for those 3 decks, then make adjustments as you would see fit. And if you want an updated combo video including the new cards from the Infinite Forbidden, let me know by leaving a comment, and subscribe to the channel for more amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and thank you to my channel members for going above and beyond, and thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all next time.